My full name is Berenice Howard-Smith and I'm a graphic designer, and I'm also a third of a podcast team called the Full Stop Podcast.
My name is Katrina Khalifa and for a living I'm General Manager of Eagle Labs Cambridge.
I'm Danielle Brown. I'm an inclusion champion, inspirational speaker and children's book author.
My name is Maddie Cox and I'm the Operations and Facilities Manager for the Museum of Cambridge.
My name's Christine Griffey and I'm a business owner.
My name is Alex Wallace and I'm the founder of the Mintridge Foundation.
Summer of 2019 I was going on holiday a lot. There were weddings abroad, big birthdays abroad. I was flying here, there and everywhere.
So I was in Sydney. I was working at a beautiful historic house and I'd just come back from a spring trip to the UK. After I came home I went, maybe I should move to the UK.
Absolutely crazy year for me. I saw so much growth in my business and I was just running up and down the country like an absolute loon.
In the summer of 2019, I probably had one of the most turbulent summers that I've ever experienced. Getting very excited about getting married, but the week before that, I lost one of my best friends to suicide. So looking back now, I just think I just had this concoction of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows that summer.
Life was okay. Challenges, I think, emotional challenges and things going on, but challenges that I've had for a long time.
Life was quite chaotic. I was running a couple of businesses. Life was pretty good.
My milestones for 2019-2020 was to move to the UK, to make that big move. So I'd started in November of 2019. I'd successfully gotten a visa and I'd started thinking of next steps.
Important plans and milestones. I think the podcast, because we'd only just started that in the May of that year and we were planning to all meet up. We were thinking about May 2020 and having a party to celebrate a whole year of podcasting.
From 2019 to 2020, we had some really important milestones, both professionally and personally. Professionally, we were really looking at stepping it up a gear for the charity, and personally as well, we were really looking to enjoy the first year of marriage with a honeymoon in the autumn, followed by moving house and so many other plans.
Myself and my partner had been engaged it was coming up 5 years in the summer of 2019, and we decided that was probably long enough to be engaged. So we decided that we wanted to start thinking about the wedding. In terms of other big plans for the future, I was 28 at the time and had a big plan to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. So yeah, millionaire by the time I was 30, luxury holiday, and start planning the wedding were our big plans for the near future.
23rd of March 2020, it was the first day of lockdown. And to be honest, it had started for me the week before. I got a jam-packed week full of events.
I don't remember the 23rd of March exactly, but I do remember the 13th of March. And the 13th of March was my 29th birthday. I had the radio on and I remember Sarah Cox saying, "We're not mentioning the C word, we're not talking about it." It was just building, there was this huge momentum building, and I was really scared by this point, scared of the unknown, scared particularly for my grandparents, and just thinking, what is this weird and wonderful time that we're living in?
The 20th of March, that Friday, was my last day at my work in Sydney in a very secure job. And we had to quickly rearrange my farewell to not being in the pub down the road, but being a picnic on the grounds out in the open so we could all be socially distanced. And that was a very bizarre way to leave a place that I loved and people I loved to go on a new adventure that now seemed quite rocky.
I was here at work, busy. It was a normal day. But we spent a lot of the day feeling uncertain and then waiting for a news announcement at 5 o'clock.
I remember that day, that was when we were travelling back, and and it was the first time we'd kind of hit news, if you want, and hit real life for so long. Actually, I'm sort of, oh, this is reality, because nothing much changed for us when we were away. And it felt at the time that Cambridge was a very long way away.
When it first started getting very real that COVID was coming, I think we had the same thought as everyone else for quite a while. It's not going to affect us. It'll be fine. They're never going to lock down the UK. Like, that's ridiculous.
So many different emotions. I think it was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. You know, you've got that whole concept of what do I do? You know, how do I adapt? I think you sort of go into that emergency crisis mode that's all about trying to find solutions.
I have a really mixed emotion about the time we were told to go into lockdown. I knew that my families were safe because my grandparents, my in-laws were shielding, so I knew that was fine. And actually, I think it was a weird way of someone telling us that as humanity, we need to slow down.
It didn't make a great deal of difference to me because I'm at home anyway. I was on the verge of kind of getting into some shared office space. I kind of wanted to get that break away from home. And of course that didn't happen.
The moment we were all told to stay at home was a mixed emotion. I didn't know exactly what it meant. So yeah, there was a sense of relief on one side, but then a sense of how long is this going to last for, and how long is that support going to be in place for? We are all told that we cannot leave our houses now. This is insane. This is not something that any of us had ever experienced.
I mean, it was definitely a slightly different experience because of where I was in the world, but in March of 2020, there were restrictions being put in place across various areas in Australia. Because I was in Brisbane and Queensland, it was a little looser. We definitely went into a version of a lockdown, but we were still able to have 1 or 2 people visit, but we weren't able to go significantly travelling anywhere, and we were all really cautious in the shops, and panic buying happened and all that sort of things.
In order to cope during the initial lockdown, I tried to keep quite a structured day. I would ensure that I would work for a couple of hours and then I would do something at lunchtime, whether that was just a 5-minute yoga session, whatever it was, I was just instilling that into my day.
I don't know how I coped, in all honesty. I used escapism a lot, so I was reading 3-4 books a week, just to pretend life probably wasn't happening as it should.
So the things that I used to cope with that first lockdown definitely turned to being outside, to being with our family pets.
I think that I've been very lucky because as an athlete, I developed so many different tools and techniques which really allowed me to cope with this change. So for me, it was very much about staying positive in my mindset and focusing on the little things, you know.
The personality qualities that I drew on, I mean, resilience has to be the main one. I think, again, having suffered with anxiety in the past, and I'm terrible for struggling with imposter syndrome, I don't often think that I'm capable or very able to deal with difficult situations. However, I think that period of time, and whilst I still don't remind myself of it as much as I probably should, I'm a lot more resilient than I thought I would be. I didn't get back, whilst there might have been days where I was quite anxious and worried about what this all meant and what was going to happen, I didn't get back to that really dark place I was at when my anxiety was at its peak a few years earlier.
I definitely realised that I am stronger than I thought I was, and actually by other people around me not coping so well, that forced me to cope better, because I'm always better when I'm thinking of others rather than me. So by supporting them, I had to be strong. So actually by default, I was stronger with it anyway.
I drew on my qualities of, unfortunately, wanting to be in control was quite challenging in a situation where you're not in control. So tried to control what I could, which were was sort of keeping track of what I was reading and just making sure I did some gardening as well. So that was sort of an activity that I could control during that time.
I have to stay busy. I have to stay busy for many reasons. Firstly, actually, that's how I cope with having a disability. So my disability is chronic pain, and if I'm not busy, if I'm not focusing on stuff, I find it really, really difficult.
So I lost my friend exactly a week before our wedding, and I think because of that time frame, I didn't allow myself to grieve properly before the wedding. I was very confused. I was very aware of how everyone else was feeling, what the right decision was to be made. Should we go ahead with the wedding? Should we not? Should we postpone?
And I think something that hit me quite hard was January this year, so January 2021, my auntie was diagnosed with
which in turn, I think I just almost compartmentalised it in a way that once the wedding was over and I had the most magical day, because friends and family really supported us and this was the right thing to do. A wedding is about togetherness, and that's exactly what Max would have wanted for us.
In January 2021, I don't know if I can, Jemima, the biggest thing that we probably didn't foresee, or I didn't foresee, was anything restricting us from spending time with the people that are most important to us.
You've got me.
My grandfather passed away. It was really difficult to not be able to go and see him in hospital, not be able to say goodbye, not be able to be with my mum at the funeral, having to stand 2 metres apart. That was the hardest thing, hands down, I've ever done in my entire life, because all you do when you're grieving is draw energy and support from those around you, and not being able to do that by physical touch, I guess, probably hugging or whatever, and not being able to do that was the hardest thing I've ever encountered.
My auntie was diagnosed with a brain tumour and an incurable brain tumour. There was nothing at all that they could do.
Some days I just wasn't able to get out of bed, largely because I was grieving, but also I was confused. I blamed myself a lot because I saw Max only a couple of days before, and it took me a long time, it took me a lot of support to actually realise that Max was very ill, very poorly, and what we have done since is create something in his memory that he would love.
She passed away a couple of months later, and I think for me that hit me because whilst the past 18 months has been really hard, to realise that was your last year, your last 12 months, was quite difficult. And it certainly put all of the challenges that we've been through in the past 18 months, all of the stuff that we've had to face, that definitely put things into perspective for me.
Max is at peace, and we'll never forget him. And we had a great wedding at a party that he would have loved and celebrated. We party hard for him that day, that's for sure.
Added complications to my experience of 2020. I think it would have been a lot easier if I wasn't so determined to move countries during a worldwide pandemic. So I went, okay, well, as soon as it's over, I'm going.
The most complicated thing I found was actually being away from my extended family. So yeah, over the last 18 months, there have been many challenges, and I think one of the big ones, staying motivated.
The last 18 months have been a lot. I have moved cities and then moved countries during a worldwide pandemic. I have started a brand new job in that different country, and that was a huge challenge, as well as going in and out of lockdowns, trying to make new friends and find new living situations.
In the last 18 months, I have learned that I can make an impact. Taking the little wins is necessary, reminding myself of when the bigger wins have been and that what I contributed to that do add value. I add value to our businesses, I add value to the relationships that we have. I don't tell myself it very much, but I do. And I've got a lot more strength and resilience than I've ever thought I had.
I am definitely glass half full. Sometimes even in a situation really challenging and really that really long-term challenging period as well, that I've been able to draw the positives out of it.
I am more resilient than I thought I was. I haven't cried half as much as I thought I would, and actually I've been much more resilient.
I have learned an awful lot about myself in the last 18 months. I have learnt that I can do something if I put my mind to it, that I can do the scary things, but also that you need to take care of yourself.
The things I've learnt about myself in the last 18 months are I don't need to be rushing around here, there and everywhere. I'm actually at my happiest when I am relaxed and enjoying the house and the home that I'm building with my husband and spending quality time with him.
You know what? I do think I'm a different person to who I was 18 months ago. I mean, there's a lot of me that's the same, but I do feel more confident. I feel a little bit more in touch with myself. And I feel like I've gone through a journey and grown from it.
Am I a different person to 18 months ago? That's such a tough one. I mean, I think really my whole life, every year I've grown, I've learned new things. So I think I'm the same person, just with an additional skill set.
Yes, definitely a different person. It's changed my outlook on everything because I no longer focus so much on the small stuff. Someone said to me at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, we might all be in the same storm, but we're not all in the same boat.
I don't think I'm a different person from 18 months ago. I just think I'm more self-aware. It's definitely that self-awareness of don't fill that stress container up, don't rush around, and actually you're at your happiest when you're not doing anything.
I do think I'm a different person from 18 months ago. I think I'm still developing on that person and what them differences are, and I've still probably got a long way to go. So yes, I think I'm stronger than I was before, and I think I'm much better at expressing that emotion.
I'm not entirely sure what the next 18 months hold. I am on a visa that expires in the middle of next year, so that's something for me to look into, whether I want to stay here or not, and I think I do. So I need to look into what my options are there.
I'm really excited for the next 18 months to come because we're hopefully going to be just on an upward trajectory now of coming out of this, and when we're not going to go backwards. I'm excited for the direction that our businesses are going in now. We can go all in on what we think is right, to have that control of our own destiny.
I don't know what the next 18 months holds, and if anything, I've learned that I maybe can't plan it to within an inch of its life because everything can change. But I'm hoping that it will be able to propel me forward in terms of my career and my life choices and how I live my life.
Next 18 months, do you know what? I genuinely don't know what they're going to hold. I want to just sort of work with what I've got, continue to write. You know, for me, that's my big passion. I love helping particularly young people. For me, that's really, really important. Just being a bit more flowing and a bit more flexible and figuring it out as I go along.